The Imperial War Academy's Museum of Ancient Warfare smelled like dust and disappointment. Or at least, that was what Instructor Vecra thought, as he led his mixed-species combat class through rows of archaic weaponry that nobody with half a functioning brain would ever use in actual battle. "These relics," Vecra announced, his four arms gesturing dramatically toward a display case, "represent the primitive stages of warfare before civilized species developed proper plasma technology and kinetic accelerators." His students shuffled behind him, a collection of 17 cadets from 12 different worlds. Most looked bored. The Kralix twins were literally drooling in sleep stupor. Only 3 seemed remotely interested, 2 Voreen exchange students, and the human. Of course, the human was interested. Cadet Jack Reeves stood at the back of the group, his bipedal frame unremarkable by galactic standards, his expression unreadable. Vecra had learned to watch humans carefully. They had this unsettling habit of being calm right before doing something completely insane. "Now then," Vecra continued, manipulating his data pad with one set of hands while the other set clasped behind his back. "We will examine the progression from handheld bladed instruments to proper energy-based combat systems. Notice how each civilization eventually abandoned these barbaric tools once they achieved basic technological competence." A few students chuckled. The human did not. Vecra moved to the first display, a massive Korvash battle axe that weighed approximately 40 kilograms. The Korvash used these during their clan wars period, roughly 8,000 years ago. Crude, heavy, utterly impractical by modern standards. He tapped another case. The Relian curved blades, known for their ceremonial significance but laughable combat utility. The Thorelians had a mortality rate of 67% in close-quarters combat before developing ranged weaponry. The class dutifully took notes, except Reeves, who just stared at the weapons with an expression Vecra could not quite identify. Curiosity, amusement, indigestion. "Professor," one of the Voreen students raised a tentacle, "why preserve these artifacts if they are so primitive?" "Excellent question, Cadet Thornvex. We preserve them as reminders of how far we have evolved. These weapons represent the darkness of pre-Enlightenment warfare, when soldiers had to actually touch their enemies to kill them." Vecra shuddered theatrically. "Barbaric. Effective, though," Reeves said quietly. The class went silent. Vecra's head scales rippled with irritation. "I am sorry, Cadet Reeves. Did you wish to contribute something to this discussion?" "Just saying." Reeves stepped forward slightly, hands in his pockets in that infuriatingly casual human posture. "Close quarters combat is not exactly obsolete. We still train in it. Hell, half the academy curriculum covers hand-to-hand. For emergency situations only," Vecra corrected sharply. "When all proper equipment has failed. These weapons," he gestured again at the displays, "were primary armaments. Soldiers carried them into battle intentionally. Can you imagine?" Reeves shrugged. "My ancestors did it for thousands of years." "Yes, well, humans are known for doing many inadvisable things for extended periods." A few students laughed. Vecra felt pleased with himself. "Which is precisely why you now use railguns and plasma rifles like every other civilized species, correct?" "Sure," Reeves agreed, but something in his tone suggested he was not actually agreeing at all. Vecra decided to move on before the human said something else irritating. He led the group deeper into the museum, past cases of polearms, maces, and projectile weapons that used chemical propulsion. Honestly, chemical propulsion, like savages. They stopped at a large display labeled Terran Historical Arsenal in Federation Standard. "Ah," Vecra brightened. "Speaking of human warfare evolution, this collection was donated by your own planet's historical society. Cadet Reeves, perhaps you can explain these artifacts to your fellow students." Reeves approached the case slowly. Inside were perhaps 20 different weapons, ranging from what appeared to be sharpened stones to ornate metal implements with elaborate hilts and guards. "Professor, I am a soldier, not a historian," Reeves said. "Surely you recognize your own species' primitive instruments." Vecra pressed. He sensed an opportunity to emphasize just how far humanity had come from their violent origins. "Please, educate us." Reeves sighed, but stepped closer to the display. "All right, that is a gladius, Roman design. Those are Dao, Chinese cavalry sabers. That is a Viking sayax. Over there, that is a Renaissance rapier. Bottom shelf has some Scottish broadswords and what looks like a katana, though I cannot see the signature from here." The casual knowledge made several students blink in surprise. Vecra felt his scales flatten slightly. "You are familiar with ancient human weaponry, Cadet? My grandfather collected the stuff, had a whole room full of replicas. I grew up around it." "Replicas," Vecra seized on the word. "Because the actual practice of these weapons is extinct, relegated to historical recreation and museum pieces, yes?" "More or less," Reeves admitted. "Excellent. You see, class, even humans, despite their well-documented violent tendencies, have evolved beyond such primitive methods. These blades are curiosities now, nothing more." "Could we see them?" asked Cadet Thornvex. "I mean, actually handle them?" Vecra's scales rippled again. "These are priceless historical artifacts." "Actually, Professor," the museum curator's voice crackled through the comm unit in Vecra's ear, "the human pieces are categorized as demonstration grade. They are cleared for supervised handling. It is in their loan agreement." Vecra tried not to groan audibly. "Well, one moment, class." He approached the control panel and entered his instructor override code. The display case's containment field flickered and died. The transparent aluminum panel slid upward with a soft hiss. "You may each select one item to examine," Vecra announced. "Carefully. If anyone damages a piece, you will be filing incident reports until you graduate." The students moved forward eagerly. This was the first interesting thing that had happened all week, unless you counted the incident where Cadet Plixnor had accidentally set his dorm room on fire trying to brew contraband stimulants. The Kralix twins each grabbed a Dao, comparing the curved blades and immediately beginning some kind of argument in their clicking language. Thornvex selected the rapier, her tentacles exploring the swept hilt with fascination. Other students grabbed broadswords, the gladius, even the ancient stone knife. Reeves hung back, watching. "Not interested, Cadet?" Vecra asked. "Just deciding," Reeves replied. The human finally reached into the case and withdrew a weapon that Vecra did not recognize. It appeared to be a sword of some kind, single-edged, with a slight curve. The blade was perhaps 75 centimeters long, the handle wrapped in what looked like twisted cord. A simple circular guard separated blade from grip. Reeves held it up, examining the edge critically. He shifted his grip, adjusted his stance, and performed a single slow practice cut through the air. Then he stopped, frowned, did it again. "Something wrong, Cadet?" Vecra asked, amused. Perhaps the human was finally experiencing some appropriate reverence for historical artifacts. "Yeah, actually," Reeves said, still frowning at the blade. "This is not balanced right." The class went quiet again. "I beg your pardon?" Vecra said. "The balance," Reeves repeated. "It is all wrong. The point of percussion is way off. The center of gravity should be about 4 inches from the guard, but this thing feels like it is almost at the midpoint of the blade, and the edge geometry is weird, too thick at the spine, not enough distal taper." Vecra stared. "Cadet Reeves, that is a genuine historical artifact from your own planet's feudal period. I hardly think you are qualified to critique its manufacture." "I am not critiquing the manufacture, Professor. I am saying this specific sword is badly balanced. Could be a replica that was never properly made. Could be damage from age. But something is definitely off. One of the Voreen students, Cadet Mixtal, gestured with a free tentacle. How can you possibly tell such things just by holding it? Feel, Reeves said simply. He extended the sword toward her. Here, try it yourself. Hold it loosely. Let it move naturally. A properly balanced blade wants to cut. This one fights you. Mixtal wrapped 2 tentacles around the grip experimentally. She made a hesitant swinging motion. I suppose it does feel somewhat awkward, but I have no frame of reference for what correct would feel like. Exactly my point, Vecra interjected. You are making subjective judgments about an object none of us have training with. Professor, I do have training, Reeves said mildly. 6 years of historical European martial arts, 3 years of Japanese kenjutsu. I have held and used probably 200 different swords. I know what properly balanced feels like. The class was staring now. Vecra felt control of the situation slipping. You are telling me that humans still practice with these archaic weapons in your modern era? Martial arts, Professor, like how the Corvash still practice their traditional wrestling forms, even though you all use plasma rifles now. Cultural preservation, physical discipline. It is not that weird. It is extremely weird, burst out Cadet Plixnor, the same student who had recently immolated his quarters. Why would anyone voluntarily learn to fight with metal sticks when we have perfectly good laser rifles? Reeves smiled slightly. Lasers run out of power. Swords do not. A blade is useless against modern armor, Vecra countered. Depends on the blade. Depends on the armor. Depends on who is holding it. Reeves was still examining the sword, turning it over in his hands. Besides, it is not about practical combat applications. It is about discipline, muscle memory, understanding leverage and momentum, and how bodies move in space. Makes you a better fighter overall, even with modern weapons. That is the most ridiculous thing I have heard today, Vecra declared. And Cadet Plixnor earlier tried to argue that his fire was technically not his fault because chemistry is difficult. The class laughed. Plixnor looked offended. Reeves just shrugged and returned the poorly balanced sword to its display stand. He selected a different weapon instead, this one a shorter blade with a broader leaf-shaped profile. What is that one? Asked Thornvex. Greek Xiphus, Reeves answered. Hoplite sword used with a shield. Infantry weapon. Very practical design. Simple, robust, hard to break. He performed a few experimental cuts, and his expression shifted to something more satisfied. Now this one is nicely balanced. Whoever made this knew what they were doing. He returned it carefully to the case and stepped back. Are we quite finished admiring primitive cutlery? Vecra asked dryly. We have 3 more gallery sections to cover, and I would prefer to complete this tour before the heat death of the universe. The students reluctantly returned their weapons to the display case. Vecra reactivated the containment field and led them onward, launching into a prepared lecture about the transition from chemical projectiles to electromagnetic acceleration. But he kept glancing back at Reeves, who walked quietly at the rear of the group, hands in pockets again, looking thoughtful. Humans were strange. Everyone knew this. But Vecra had been teaching for 70 years across 7 different species, and he prided himself on understanding his students. He did not understand Cadet Reeves at all. The tour continued through the projectile weapons gallery, where Vecra explained the laughable inefficiency of chemical-propelled ammunition. Then through the armor exhibition, where he detailed how modern energy shielding had made physical protective gear obsolete. Through it all, Reeves said nothing, but Vecra could see him looking at everything with that same analytical expression, like he was cataloging information, filing it away for later use. When they finally returned to the Academy's main campus, Vecra dismissed the class with a reminder about their upcoming tactical simulation exam. The students dispersed quickly, most heading toward the cafeteria. Reeves started to leave with them, but Vecra called him back. A moment, Cadet. Reeves stopped, turned. Sir, Vecra studied him for a moment. Your knowledge of ancient weaponry is unexpected. Most humans your age have little interest in historical warfare. My family is a little old-fashioned, Reeves said, clearly. However, I should remind you that this academy trains soldiers for modern warfare, plasma rifles, kinetic cannons, orbital strikes, not sword fighting. I am aware, Professor. Are you? Because your enthusiasm for those primitive implements concerns me. The galaxy has evolved beyond such barbarism. Reeves met his eyes steadily. With respect, Professor, violence is violence. The tools change. The principles do not. Understanding how people killed each other 3,000 years ago helps you understand how they will kill each other tomorrow. Vecra felt his scales ripple uncomfortably. That is a disturbingly cynical philosophy, Cadet. It is a realistic one, sir. They stood in silence for a moment, instructor and student, different species separated by thousands of years of divergent evolution, but united by the profession of arms. Finally, Vecra waved a dismissive hand. Go, get food, do whatever it is humans do in their leisure time. But remember, your tactical exam is in 3 days. I suggest you focus on modern combat doctrine, not ancient history. Yes, sir, Reeves said, but he smiled slightly as he left, like he knew something Vecra did not. The instructor watched him go, feeling vaguely unsettled. 3 days later, that unsettled feeling would seem prophetic. But for now, Vecra had other classes to teach and other students to worry about. He certainly did not expect that the discussion about ancient blades would become relevant again so soon. He definitely did not expect it would become relevant during a shipwide emergency. And he absolutely, positively, did not expect that the humans' strange expertise with archaic weapons would save all their lives. But the universe, Vecra would soon learn, had a wicked sense of humor. The alarm started screaming at 0347 station time, which was objectively the worst possible moment for anything bad to happen. Vecra jolted awake in his quarters, all 4 arms flailing in confusion before his military training kicked in and he rolled out of his sleeping pod. Red emergency lighting bathed everything in crimson panic. Attention all personnel, the station AI announced in that calm, infuriating voice that AIs always use during catastrophes. We are experiencing a critical hull breach in Sector 7, containment fields holding at 42%. All combat-rated personnel report to emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Vecra was already pulling on his uniform, his mind racing through possibilities. Hull breach could mean anything. Meteor strike, equipment failure, or worse. His comm unit chirped. Instructor Vecra, this is command. We need you in the museum wing. Now. The museum? Command, this is Vecra. Why the museum? Surely my skills are better utilized at the breach itself or coordinating student evacuations. Negative, instructor. We have a situation. The breach occurred near the museum sector. Worse, we detected unauthorized vessel attachment at that location 17 minutes before the alarm. We believe we have boarders. Vecra's scales went flat against his skull. Boarders, pirates probably, taking advantage of the War Academy's skeleton crew during off-cycle hours. Most students were on leave, most instructors too. The station was running at maybe 30% capacity. Understood, Command. En route. What assets do I have? Whatever cadets are still on station and awake. We are sealing bulkheads and trying to contain the intruders to museum and adjacent sectors. Do not let them reach the armory or vehicle bay. Copy that. Vecra grabbed his sidearm, checked the charge, and sprinted into the corridor. The museum wing was a full minute's run from his quarters. He covered the distance in 45 seconds, his heart's pounding in syncopation. Other doors were opening along the way. Confused students stumbling out, some in uniform, some in sleeping clothes. "Anyone combat rated, follow me," Vecra shouted without stopping. "Everyone else, get to the designated shelter points." He heard footsteps behind him. Good. He would take whatever help he could get. The museum entrance was in chaos. 2 security officers were setting up a defensive position behind overturned benches. One of them was bleeding from a nasty cut across his shoulder. "Report!" Vecra snapped. 6 hostiles, maybe 8, came through the wall." The injured officer gasped. He was a Thorellian, his natural armor cracked and leaking the thick blue fluid his species used for blood. "Breaching charges, professional grade." They went straight for the historical vault, not the museum displays, the actual vault in the back. Vecra's mind clicked through implications. The historical vault contained genuine artifacts too valuable or dangerous for public display. Weapons from extinct civilizations, prototype technology, a few items that were classified for reasons nobody had adequately explained to him. Where are they now? Still inside, we think. We pulled back when they started shooting. Lost contact with Curator Fendel. Lovely. Vecra checked his pistol again. Fully charged, 30 shots. Against 6 to 8 armed pirates. Fantastic odds. He turned to see who had followed him and felt his hearts sink further. 5 cadets. Just 5. And naturally, one of them was Reeves. The human looked annoyingly awake for this hour, already in full combat gear, carrying what appeared to be a standard-issue Academy rifle. The other 4 cadets were the Kralix twins, Thornvex and Mixtal. Better than nothing, but not by much. "Orders, sir?" Reeves asked calmly. Vecra wanted to scream. Instead, he took a breath and accessed his tactical training. "We need to assess the situation before engaging. Command is sealing bulkheads so the hostiles are trapped in this sector. That helps us. But we need to know what they are after and how heavily armed they are." "I can scout ahead," Reeves offered. "Absolutely not. You are a cadet, not a reconnaissance specialist." "With respect, Professor, I am the quietest walker here. Humans have those nice soft feet. No claws clicking on deck plates." Vecra hated that the human was right. "Fine, but you take no action without reporting back. Understood?" "Crystal clear, sir." Reeves moved forward in a crouch, weapon ready, disappearing into the darkened museum with unnerving silence. The human was right about the feet thing. Vecra could not hear him at all once he was 10 meters away. They waited. Vecra counted heartbeats. 30 seconds. 60. 90. His comm crackled. Reeves whispering. 6 hostiles confirmed. Heavy armor, military-grade plasma rifles. They have breached the historical vault and are pulling items out. Looks like they know exactly what they want. Taking artifacts from the restricted section. They have already killed Curator Fendal. Body is visible near the vault entrance. Vecra felt his scales ripple in anger. Fendal had been a colleague for 9 years. Not a close friend, but a decent being who had never hurt anyone. "Can you identify what they are taking?" A pause. "Negative, too dark and too far, but they are working fast. Professional operation. I would estimate 10 minutes before they are ready to extract." "Pull back to our position, Cadet." "Copy that." Reeves materialized from the shadows like a ghost, making even Vecra jump slightly. They have a path back to their breach point clear. If we want to stop them, we need to do it in the next few minutes. 6 against 6, Vecra mused. If we had better positioning, maybe, but charging into the vault room is suicide. "We do not need to charge," Reeves said thoughtfully. "We need to make them come to us. Fight on our terms, not theirs." "And how do you propose we accomplish that, Cadet?" Reeves smiled, and Vecra suddenly remembered every unsettling thing about humans he had ever learned. "We use bait, and we stack the deck." 3 minutes later, Vecra was seriously questioning his judgment in listening to a 19-year-old human with delusions of tactical genius. But they were committed now. The plan was simple, which Vecra appreciated because complicated plans fell apart under pressure. The Kralix twins had positioned themselves in the upper gallery with the two security officers, providing elevated firing positions. Thornvex and Mixitol were behind cover on opposite sides of the main hall, creating a crossfire zone. Vecra himself was positioned near the entrance, ready to seal the escape route on command. And Reeves was walking directly toward the vault, alone, weapons slung across his back, hands clearly visible and empty. "This is insane," Vecra muttered into the comm. "Probably," Reeves agreed cheerfully, "but it will work." The human reached the vault entrance and called out in clear, loud galactic standard. "Hey, you folks in there, the station is locked down. You are not getting out. We can do this easy or hard, your choice." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a massive armored figure stepped into view. Corvash, from the look of the build. The plasma rifle in his hands was bigger than Reeves's entire torso. "Little human," the pirate's voice rumbled through external speakers. "You should run away. We do not have time for games." "See, that is the thing," Reeves said conversationally. "I am really bad at following advice. Character flaw. Just ask my instructors." Two more pirates emerged from the vault. Then three more, all armed, all clearly annoyed. "Last warning," the lead Corvash growled. "Yeah, I am going to pass on running away, but I will offer you a counter proposal. You surrender, nobody else dies today, and you get to spend the next 20 years in a moderately comfortable prison instead of a grave. Sound good?" The lead pirate laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. Bold words for someone about to become plasma vapor. He raised his rifle, and Reeves moved. The human dropped straight down as the first shot ionized the air where his head had been. In the same motion, he drew something from his belt and threw it in a single fluid movement that Vecra barely tracked. The object was small, metallic, and spun end over end through the air with lethal precision. It was, Vecra realized with shock, one of the throwing knives from the museum display, the ones Reeves must have grabbed during his scouting run. The knife buried itself in the lead pirate's throat, right in the gap between helmet and chest armor. The Corvash staggered, gurgling, his rifle firing wildly into the ceiling. "Now!" Vecra screamed. The ambush erupted. Plasma fire rained down from the gallery. The cadets opened up from their crossfire positions. The pirates, caught completely off guard, scrambled for cover. But Reeves was not done. The human had rolled behind a display case during the chaos and came up with something else in his hands. The gladius, Vecra realized. The actual ancient Roman gladius from the Terran display. A pirate rushed Reeves's position, probably thinking close combat against an unarmored cadet would be easy. Reeves proved him spectacularly wrong. The human moved like water, like he had been born with a blade in his hand. He sidestepped the pirate's rifle burst, closed the distance in 2 steps, and drove the gladius up under the pirate's arm where the armor joints flexed. The blade punched through, and the pirate dropped screaming. "Vecra, seal the entrance!" Reeves shouted. The instructor slammed his hand on the control panel. The heavy blast doors began grinding closed. 2 pirates made a run for the exit. The Kralix twins dropped one with concentrated fire. The other made it to the doorway just as the blast door sealed shut, catching him halfway. There was a wet crunching sound, then silence. 3 pirates down, 3 to go. Except the remaining 3 had found better cover and were returning fire with professional discipline. Plasma bolts cracked through the museum, shattering display cases and setting ancient artifacts ablaze. "We need to end this fast," Thornvex called out. "They are going to destroy everything." Reeves was already moving, blade still in hand, using the display cases as cover as he flanked the pirate's position. Vecra tried to provide covering fire, but his pistol was designed for close-range defense, not this kind of firefight. One pirate spotted Reeves and spun, rifle tracking the human's movement. Reeves threw the gladius. It was not a throwing weapon, not designed for it. but the human put enough force behind it that the blade spun twice and struck the pirate pommel first in the faceplate with a crack that echoed through the hall. The pirate stumbled backward, visor shattered, and Thornavex finished him with a precise shot. 2 left. The remaining pirates were backing toward the vault, clearly trying to either grab their stolen goods or find better defensive ground. Reeves grabbed another weapon from a broken display case, a Viking hand axe this time, single-bladed, simple design. Cadet Reeves, stop grabbing museum pieces and use your actual weapon, Vecra shouted. Rifle is out of charge, Reeves called back. Besides, these work fine. The human threw the axe in a perfect rotation. It caught one pirate in the knee joint, and the armored figure collapsed with a shriek. Last pirate standing. And apparently, that pirate had reached his limit. He dropped his rifle, raised his hands, and started screaming surrender in 3 different languages. Silence fell over the museum, broken only by the crackle of small fires and the groans of wounded pirates. Vecra slowly stood from cover, all 4 arms trembling with adrenaline crash. He stared at the carnage, at the destroyed displays, at the bodies, at the ancient weapons, scattered across the floor, some still embedded in pirates. At Reeves, standing in the middle of it all, breathing hard but seemingly unhurt, looking around for another weapon just in case. Cadet Reeves, Vecra said carefully. Yes, sir. You just won a firefight against armored pirates using museum pieces. Yes, sir. Ancient museum pieces that I specifically told you were primitive and useless. To be fair, sir, I also used tactics and the element of surprise. The swords were just tools. Vecra walked over to where the gladius lay on the deck, next to the pirate it had been thrown at. He picked it up carefully. The blade was undamaged, barely even scuffed. You threw a 2,000-year-old artifact at an armed criminal. It seemed appropriate at the time, Reeves said. He bent down and retrieved the throwing knife from the first pirate's body, wiping it clean on the dead Corvash's armor. Also, I was right about the balance issue. This gladius throws beautifully, but that sword from yesterday would have tumbled wrong and probably missed. Security forces were pouring into the museum now, weapons ready, securing the scene. Medical teams rushed to tend the wounded security officers. Command was barking orders through comm channels. Vecra just stood there, holding an ancient Roman sword that smelled like fresh violence, trying to process what had just happened. The Kralix twins climbed down from the gallery, chattering excitedly. Thornvex and Mixtal emerged from cover, both looking shaken but unharmed. Reeves walked over to the Terran display case, or what remained of it, and started carefully collecting the scattered weapons. We should document which artifacts got damaged. Curator Fendal would have wanted proper records. Fendal is dead, Cadet. I know, sir. That is why we owe him proper records. Vecra felt something shift in his understanding. He looked at this human, this young soldier who casually quoted ancient warfare while respecting dead colleagues, who turned museum pieces into functional weapons because the situation demanded it. Your grandfather, Vecra said slowly, the one who collected replica swords. He taught you to use them. He was Special Forces, sir, retired. He believed in understanding all forms of combat, not just the ones in the current manual. Said you never know when old knowledge will save your life. He was wise. He was paranoid and obsessive, Reeves corrected with a slight smile. But yeah, also wise. The station commander arrived, took one look at the scene, and immediately started shouting for situation reports. Vecra gave a concise summary, making sure to emphasize the cadet's actions, particularly Reeves. The commander listened, his expression cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally resignation. So, you are telling me a first-year cadet neutralized 4 armored pirates with ancient weapons because his rifle ran out of charge? That is an accurate summary. Yes, sir. The Cecil. Commander looked at Reeves. Son, that is either the stupidest or most brilliant thing I have heard this year, and I have not decided which. I will take either, sir, Reeves said. In the aftermath, as they sorted through the mess and identified what the pirates had been after, classified technology from an extinct civilization that nobody was supposed to know about, Vecra found himself back at the Terran display case. The Gladius was there, returned and cleaned. The throwing knife, too. The axe had been logged as damaged beyond repair, its handle cracked from impact, but the poorly balanced sword, the one Reeves had criticized, sat untouched in its stand. Vecra picked it up, feeling the weight, trying to sense what the human had detected immediately. The balance was off. Now that he knew what to feel for, it was obvious. The weapon fought against natural movement, resisted proper form. He put it down and picked up the Gladius instead. Felt the perfect balance point, the way it seemed to float in his grip, ready to move wherever directed. Instructor Vecra, one of the security officers, approached. "Command wants your after-action report within the hour." "Understood." Vecra returned the Gladius to its stand carefully. "Tell them it will be comprehensive." As he walked away, he glanced back one more time at the museum, at the ancient weapons that had, impossibly, saved their lives. Maybe, he thought, there was something to be said for old knowledge after all. Maybe the galaxy had not evolved quite as far beyond barbarism as everyone liked to believe. And maybe, just maybe, humans had been onto something all along. The museum would be rebuilt, the damaged artifacts cataloged, the stolen technology recovered. The pirates would face trial. But Vecra's next lecture on the evolution of warfare was going to require some serious revision, because apparently sometimes the old ways still worked just fine.